So on this third one, again, it's still on the private piece, but this is more so in within a transition area or a staging area. So this is more on the back side of the property, near my main food plot. So essentially what I've got is the main food plot. There's a patch of pines, and then there's a little bit of an opening where there's some early successional growth, some pine saplings, or some other brush, and some small willows, saplings essentially coming up. So there's a nice little spot here, and then you know behind that is the main creek bottom where a creek runs through, and that's where a lot of the thicker cover is again. So basically, that transition area where the deer can come out of that thicker cover, get into this little opening where there's some forage and different things to eat on, and then they can transition into the bigger food plot from there. In this area, I've had a lot of those saplings and some of that smaller brush. It's kind of a congregation of a bunch of rubs. Even there's a smaller crabapple tree that's essentially grown up a little bit now, but that's another area where I documented where some of the bucks would leave some kind of impromptu scrapes in the past. So this one here is basically, again, I was trying to find the best trail that I could essentially put it in, or put that scrape right in the middle of the trail. So I did find one that was on one trail, but pretty close to where a couple trails intersected. So from this, there's a couple of big mature pines. So what I did was I trimmed back a lot of the branches, essentially making it to where this licking branch I was gonna install kind of was the only branch in the neighborhood. And then by having all these other branches trimmed up and having this one hanging down and kind of out in the open, it's basically kind of sticking out like a sore thumb a little bit. So visually, from a distance, deer might be able to see that, and kind of pique its interest. It might come over. Again, it's kind of that same thing where deer just kind of can't resist hitting those scrapes when they see them. Same thing again. I opened up this scrape. I opened this one up again, probably pretty big, so I wanted to kind of draw attention to it. So once the deer got close, they would notice this big, bare, dirt spot in comparison to a lot of the area where it's kind of litter with some of the pine litter, and then a lot of the grasses and other weeds that are growing up around the area. So this one again, I anticipate I'm gonna get quite a bit more, either early morning or just pre-dark pictures. With this being that staging area, these deer are going to feel comfortable, being in that area, and kind of milling around in this area before they move out to the food plot that's a little bit larger. They're going to feel nice, safe, and secure. They're not going to be on edge like they would be, in the bigger fields where they feel more exposed. Same thing with this one. Again, hung a camera, and then also within shooting distance of a stand, where basically I've been trying to figure out how to get a stand location within the staging area. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to be setting up my tree stand very close to the pond and the main 2-track that kind of runs through the property itself, so I can utilize the pond as kind of like backstop that will prevent deer, or not allow deer to get behind me or get downwind of me. And then I can also utilize the 2-track to sneak in there kind of quietly without making a bunch of noise, tromping through the woods itself. So again, same thing with this one. We're looking at, again, I think it's about 25, 26, maybe 30 yards from the tree that I'm planning on hanging the stand to where that scrape is. So, and as you already can tell, there's starting to be a trend where I always want to have those scrapes within shooting range of a deer stand, especially in regards to when I'm bow hunting. So the next one I want to talk about is actually on state land, or on public land essentially. So this one again is a staging area. This area caught my eye a couple years back when I was doing some scouting, and there was just a uh, array of rubs, and eventually found a couple of smaller, again, probably more impromptu or hasty scrapes that some bucks have made in that area. And I could see too from the rubs, there was definitely historical movement there. So there's definitely rubs that are much older, and then there were rubs that were essentially brand new from that season. So with this one, I utilized more so the natural scrapes that were already there. All I did was kind of upgrade them a little bit, or kind of freshen them up essentially. So with the scrapes that were there, they were probably somewhere between a foot to 2 feet in diameter, at least in regards to the bare dirt that was exposed. What I did was I opened that up probably closer to about 3 foot opening, just to try to push back some of that weed growth and make that dirt, or that freshly turned earth, a little bit more prominent. And then again, with that scrape bar being there, there was already naturally an overhead branch. This one, again, with it being when I first really built it, or came across, it was already within season. So I did take some of that rutting buck, put that down in the scrape itself, and then took some of the Evercalm and put that up on the licking branch to just try to get a higher scent profile that could hopefully get a deer's attention a little bit sooner than having them try to find it naturally, and build up that scent organically, essentially. So, and again, with this one, I was actually very pleased. Again, within probably the first night or two, I had probably one of the biggest bucks I've seen on public land, come and hit the scrape. And then basically, even during the daytime, because of it being in that staging area, I had pictures of bucks, essentially midday. And this was even still within October, it wasn't even November yet. And they were still feeling comfortable moving around because of the cover that was still in the area, and hitting that scrape on a routine basis. Again, same thing with this one. It was in an area that I planned to hunt. So I had a stand location. I think with this one is probably about 30 yards. Again, I could still shoot at that scrape. Especially in regards to on public land, you do have to get a little more creative, or think about a little bit more exactly where your placement of the scrape or your stand location is going to be. Certainly, you do have some limitations where you're not able to, cut out shooting lanes, or make any significant disturbance to any of the trees.